Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror, the podcast. I'm your host, Kevin L. Power. I'm also the owner operator of Something Wicked Entertainment, and I want to welcome you into our program today. Now, if you've been listening to me in this podcast, you'll know what I like to do is like to take an individual horror film from any type of subgenre or decade, and me and a special guest are going to kind of critique, analyze, have a general conversation about the film because we want to get into the nuts and bolts of what makes this film a good film, a bad film, or an ugly film. It can range because all of my special guests have different backgrounds. So that is a great thing about what we do here on the show is we bring a lot of different special guests on here that have a lot of different backgrounds, which means some of the films I may not like, they may love, and some of the films they may love, I may not like. That may be the story with today's film because it's a very interesting adaptation of one of Stephen King's celebrated novels. And that film is Firestarter from 1984. This is the original, not the sequel, not the remake, not anything else out there other than that. We are going with the original one from director Mark L. Lester. And to talk about this film with me, I do have Mr. Philip Ray. I do want to thank you for joining us on this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
So, with this film, I know where I was when I first saw the film, but where were you and how did you come across this film and what did you think about it?
I did not see it when it first came out. I actually ended up watching the movie to get ready for this episode for the podcast for the first time. Um, I remember we were talking about this off mic a couple of minutes ago, but I knew about Firestarter generally, and it seemed really interesting, the premise. And for our viewers who don't know, the premise is basically about this girl who, she has pyrokinesis as her power, and her superpower family are basically getting hunted by the government, and it's a little bit about that. So I remember when I heard about the remake coming out a couple years ago, that's when I got really interested in it. But I ended up not seeing the remake, so I ended up not spending the time watching the original up until wanting to talk about it on the show. But as my general thoughts and stuff, um, it is very, I would say, I was very surprised a little bit about the ambitiousness with some of the effects and stuff, especially with like when the time the movie came out and stuff. Like, it does not, this is back when, we don't have didn't have CGI that much back then, and even if it did, it didn't look good. So, and they easily could have tried to cop out and attempt to do CGI, but no, they did a lot of practical with the fires and the powers and stuff, and I was honestly like I was kind of impressed alone with that. As for the story, we can talk more about that a little bit later.
So, this film I grew up on. I've probably seen this movie a billion times as a kid. And as a kid growing up, I was a huge fan of Drew Barrymore. So I had seen this movie a lot more than I probably ever should have. But I also grew up with a mother who loved Stephen King. So the thing is, it's Stephen King. My mother had us watching it as soon as it came out. I remember it very fondly because I think she probably saw this movie a billion times as well. So I've seen this movie a billion times as well. Every once in a while, I'll pick this movie up and watch it. I did watch it just recently before when the remake came out to kind of get myself refreshed with it. And I saw the remake when it came out. But some of the stuff that they screwed up with in this film, they fixed, and some of the stuff that didn't need fixing, they fucked up in the remake. So I like to go back to this one because I still genuinely like how this one progresses and how the special effects are still really good, in my opinion. And the story. Now you hit the nail on the coffin with the story. The story is pretty straightforward. This is one of Stephen King's more straightforward stories.
Yeah, there's not a lot of nuance to it. It's pretty, again, it's a lot about anti-CIA and all that stuff. Again, there's how the characters get their powers is uh the Andy, who is the father and stuff, and his wife get superpowers essentially from being experimented by a government experiment that was pretty factual, true things that have happened in this world and stuff. So it was very, and then again, like, and then being hunted down by essentially the same thing. They nicknamed in the story the agents are nicknamed the Shop.
Hmm.
They're hunting them down, but it's it's stereotypical evil government.
Even, yeah, it's the evil government that, if I'm not mistaken, shows up in several early Stephen King novels. They're just a government entity that has nefarious goals. And I like the fact that, when this came out, we also had the movie around the 80s. We had the It's Alive movie and several other movies that dealt with experiments that we did not realize what the fallout would be. So I that and if you've seen It's Alive, that's exactly what that is about. Same thing happens here. These two people, Vicky and Andy or Andrew, however you want to call them, are just volunteering because they need the money. That's essentially it. They need the money, which is why all of us who have ever actually volunteered for a government experiment or a non-government experiment are doing it for the money. I did it in college. I'm not gonna lie. I did it for college. I did volunteer for those random experiments where you don't know what's going to be the fallout from, just for money for college. So I'm guilty of that too. But this one, I
So
like.
basically, Kevin's telling this is his telling me that he has superpowers, and this is how he tells me. What the heck? I thought we were friends.
I thought I had superpower. I wish I had the superpowers. I wasn't that lucky. And neither were most of the people in this experiment because when they are given the drug, they all go crazy except for these two, Vicky and Andrew, who just happen to actually find a connection with each other. And then, of course, while they're on this drug, they get pregnant and they have a young daughter by the name of Charlie, played by Drew Barrymore. And so, even though they are not actively watching these two know that they're being watched and they don't know if it's the Shop. I didn't realize this when I rewatched it, that the Shop, they ask if it's the Shop putting on this experiment, but they say no, it's not the Shop. So the Shop already at the very beginning of this film has like this
Yeah.
nefarious goal and a legacy that they're just bad. They don't actually get a confirmation they're the Shop until Andy finds himself literally captured by the Shop. I don't think I ever picked up on that until I rewatched it. I just kind of assumed that everyone knew they were in a shop and that was it. But I like that idea that they don't know who's after them. They just know it's the government. Because the
Yeah.
government's
No.
watching them, they have them bugged and all that type of stuff. So I like, and this is the thing about this movie. When you're growing up watching this movie, you kind of dismiss a lot of the early stuff and you want to get to, Charlie using her powers.
Yeah, no, it is funny because yeah, no, I did like that little subtlety with the little hint about the shop. So when they pop up later and stuff, you're already kind of getting introduced to them.
Yeah, I mean, this movie starts off fast. I mean, it literally starts off with the Andy and Charlie characters being chased along the streets by members of the
Mm.
Shop. And then they don't start off with the experiment. Those are played back as flashbacks, which I actually like that they did it that way instead of like starting from the very beginning. Those are just snippets and short little flashback scenes. It's good. But if you're a Heather Locklear fan, it's not so good because you only see her in a couple scenes and then she's dead. Which is unfortunate. This is an early film
Yeah.
of Heather Locklear, so it's all good. But it starts off really fast. I mean, they are being chased, and they have to this movie is literally a chase movie for like 2/3 of the movie, almost. They are getting chased and they're poor. Like they're poor, like they're stealing money from a freaking telephone machine just to get enough money to stay in the hotel room. Seeing these type of characters, especially in the 80s, is refreshing because they seem like normal people. Like I don't think you'd have that same scene in today's film. You wouldn't have
Yes.
that. They wouldn't be poor. These guys are poor. They left their house fast. They didn't have any money. They didn't have credit cards. They didn't have any of that type of stuff because they could be attracted by that stuff. They were poor. I was like, that's refreshing to see these type of characters in a film where everything is not so clean cut and pristine.
Yeah, no, I like that. One thing I like too about things you don't see often is with the parents, Andy and
Vicky?
Vicky wanting to train Charlie on her powers. A lot of times you don't see that a lot sometimes with these superpower families and stuff. A lot of times, it's like, oh, we gotta hide our powers. We have to, but no, like there's a couple different training sections they have with her before bad things happen. And like that was actually like I like those sections and stuff. I thought those were I don't think you see those often sometimes. I think sometimes again, we see the opposite of that. So I like those. I like that that was a thing.
Well, I also liked, and I didn't pick this up when I was a kid either. I picked this up on the recent rewatch, is that there is a theory by members of the shop that the reason why they didn't know about Charlie is that her father was suppressing her powers her entire young life. Because if they didn't know when she might just use her powers inadvertently when she was a baby or a young little teen. They're just now allowing her to use her powers. I like that. I don't remember ever actually noticing that little bit of information about this movie when I saw it as a kid. And the thing is, I hate to say this, I haven't read this Stephen King book. There's like three or four of his early books I just haven't read for some odd reason. This is one of them. I have not read this book, so I don't actually know all the details of this book. I have been told that this movie follows the book really well, but I don't know any of that because I haven't read the book. But I did like
Yeah,
that aspect.
I haven't read the book either, but from the things I have read about the book, I mean, there's a lot of elements that are most of it's correct. There's a couple things they changed, and honestly, some of them I'm fine with. Like there's a subplot where Andy becomes like a drug addict in the book, and they cut that section out in the middle, which I think is fine because honestly, it didn't make sense. It was kind of felt for padding. Because I'm not even joking. In the book, the when they get captured and stuff, there's a while, while stuff's happening that Andy suddenly becomes addicted to drugs and stuff. And then he uses his power to make himself unaddicted later and stuff, which was very like
Hmm.
silly.
Early Stephen King. Yeah, there's a reason why I haven't really gone back to read all of Stephen King's early films or books. I've read most of his later books, but the early ones I kind of like, okay, yeah, I can't see those being nearly anywhere near as good as his latter books. But when you're watching this film, because it's so fast paced, and this is like a road movie in a sense. Andy and Charlie they're on a road trip. They are going from one place to the next, trying to find a safe place from the government. Now, I did like the one aspect of the story I thought was really interesting is that Andy wants to tell the papers and the Times and everybody what the government has done to them and what and prove that they what they're doing is real, because that becomes a plot point in the film that ultimately ends that way. But their goal is to get to a place where he can write letters to all the major newspapers to reveal what's going on with the shop and reveal what is going on with him and his daughter. And I was like, that's an interesting element that you wouldn't expect in a film like this. You most certainly wouldn't expect it now. But it's interesting to rewatch this, and that becomes like a plot point that is part of the resolution of the movie itself. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's one thing about this story that uh generally I actually do enjoy is there's a lot of elements in this that you don't see a lot. Um that with this type of story, it'll be a lot different. And yeah, no, I liked it. I liked everything at the beginning, the origins of the powers. Like you said, there's a lot of the movie is on the run. There's a lot of the movie where it's kind of a training thing. It's a kind of training montage
Yeah.
For Charlie. There's actually multiple, honestly, throughout the story. And then again, like their whole goal of, wanting to basically reveal everything, like outing the government to the news and stuff. Like again, not something. Usually, if you see a storyline like that, that's usually like a side character wanting to do that.
Yes.
But the fact that this is the main character's plans is really cool. And then, uh, and it would be cool with the whole idea with Rainbird. There's this assassin that is supposed to be Native American. Unfortunately, that's not in this story, at least,
In the
because
remake, that's one of the elements of the remake that they do fix.
yes,
The thing is, until rewatching it and after seeing the remake, it's never bothered me because I was always a huge George C. Scott fan.
yeah,
It only bothered me after watching the remake. I am sad to say this, knowing that I had a ton of Native American friends growing up, and this film was never discussed. So I don't know, like I don't have any reference point for how any of my Native American friends felt about this film and the representation of George C. Scott as a Native American. But I had seen this movie so many times as a kid. I just know George C. Scott because he's done so many goddamn movies that I grew up watching, and enjoying and loving and still loving. And we've done several George C. Scott movies on this program for one of those reasons. Um, so it didn't bother me until after I'd seen the remake, and it was like when I rewatched it for this episode, I was like, oh damn, I can't unsee it now. It's like,
yeah. It's one of those things of you don't, if you didn't know anything about it, you wouldn't think anything about it. But once you know anything about it, you're like, oh, I mean, uh, again, the hint is kind of his last name, Rainbird's like, that's an interesting last name for a white guy. And then you find out any second, you go, oh, yeah, that would have been better. Yeah. And it's the problem too of like, and that was just the how things were, especially in the 80s and stuff, where it's just like that stuff would happen, and it's like you could have just changed the character's name if you were not planning to cast a Native American person and stuff. But at that time, they were like, ah, who cares? No one really cares about that. And back then they, quotation didn't care and stuff. I do appreciate that the remake then did, like you said, address that mistake and actually casted the right race.
yeah, and the right actually, to be honest with you, I forget that the actor's. It sucks that I can't remember the actor's name because he's in one of my favorite shows right now. And I can't think of his name. Shit, but he does a phenomenal job in the remake, and I just thought the remake was just okay. I didn't like all the changes the remake did. I think this story right here, this version of it, feels authentic and real and raw. And when I watched the remake, it felt too sleek. Um,
Yes.
it
I
did,
think one
yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of the problems from what I know about the remake, and again, I've only read about stuff you would know a little bit more, is I think they lost. Well, one big thing is, and I remember hearing about this, and it really, I was like, you gotta be kidding me, is the fact that they really dulled down the fire effects in it versus, and it's like, it's like you have all this technology. It's like you should make it should be so more bombastic than the original. And it's like, again, it's a lot of problems nowadays where it's like we've got the CGI, it doesn't look impressive, and also for some reason, and it's like, well, we don't want to do any of the practical stuff. So we're also just going to cut corners because the remake was done by Blumhouse, and I think funny enough, the budgets are the same. Like that's the funny thing is the budgets are the same, but I think when you watch them side by side, it kind of feels like the original feels like they used their money more practically.
Mm. Hmm. That surprises me that the budgets were about the same. I would have thought they would be at least double that compared to the original.
Yep,
But
they
money,
both were 12 million.
how much?
12 million, both were 12 million.
Interesting. Well, 12 million can go a lot farther back in the day than it does now. I'll tell you that now. Uh, but Yeah, you're right. The and all the fire effects are CGI now. So this film, because of the fact that it's so much practical effects, is what really makes this one hold up much better than the remake does. And one day we'll get around to having a discussion, conversation about the original one. Because what better way to delve into Stephen King films than to go and do both the originals and remakes, since it seems to be the norm now where all of these great movies from the 80s and 90s are being remade for newer audiences. um, but the thing is, this film, and I forgot when I was rewatching it. I don't know how many times I've seen this film, but I forgot that when Charlie and Andy are on their road trip, they come across the old couple who are on
Yeah.
a farm, and I forgot that was Louise Fletcher in there. I don't know if you're familiar with Louise Fletcher, but I've seen Louise Fletcher in so much shit that's ridiculous. I just because she's such a innocent character in this movie, I must have just blocked that out. I'm so used to her playing the bad guy or the hard ass, like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, or even the Invaders from Mars remakes. I'm like so used to her playing that her playing a really subdued farm wife was like, oh shit, that's Louise Fletcher. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Um, but those type of characters make this film. When they meet these people, they seem like normal characters. They don't seem like over exaggerated characters. I didn't get the same feeling from the remake from those very similar characters like that. Um, and so even though this is a story about a young girl with supernatural powers, it seems like a much more authentic film because we or audiences haven't been inundated with superhero movies.
Yeah.
And if you watch the remake, it's like they try and make the Firestarter, the Charlie character, a superhero in the remake, more so than what is in this film. And I think that does a disservice to the story because here they're such real characters. I mean, David Keith does a great job as a father, just trying to protect his daughter at all costs because he watched the shop kill his wife. Like he finds his wife in a closet lying on one of those ironing racks. It just falls right out of the little closet door. I was like, damn, she was just stuffed in there by the shop members. So, and the thing is, he doesn't want to use weapons. He's not trying to kill people in this film. He's still almost like he could. He could. Like they killed his wife. He could. But you watch the movie and he's not trying to kill anybody. He's just trying to disarm or what's a good word? A companion word to disarm. Um, well, he's just not trying to kill,
De-escalate?
huh?
De-escalate?
De-escalate. Yeah, yeah. He does try to do de-escalate. Whereas the shop doesn't give two shits about him. He knows. And that's the strange thing about this film. But number one, he's aware that his powers are slowly killing him. And he's aware that the shop is trying to kill him and all because all they want is his daughter. And yet he doesn't want to kill them. And I like
Well,
that aspect of the character as you're watching it.
Well, it's funny too because yeah, like he easily could be like, "All right, Charlie, do it," and most of the time he is like, again, like the confrontation outside the house and stuff. He's like, "You guys better leave.
Yeah,
She's going to do it," and it's just like, "Hey, I told you." Like he has a couple moments like that throughout where he's just
yeah.
like, "Hey, I told you." Like I don't want to do this, but my child's getting the hair, her hair's flowing. You know what that means.
Yeah, he warns them. It's only the very last sequence when he's on his dying bed where he tells her to make them never forget. Do what she has to do, and they make them not want to ever come after you again. And then, of course, that I still love the ending of this movie. Fucking, I love the ending of this movie. I think it's a really effective ending for this movie and for the character. And even
Oh, it's such a great sequence, especially again, we talk about the practical effects of just like that's the thing too of like really what made me really like it. It's just again, a lot of these practical they easily, it could be like some simple moments like oh, someone's on fire like no, they varied it up, like she's setting like cars on fire, helicopters on fire, random dudes they're getting set on fire, they're like flying everywhere and stuff. Like it's
Fireballs. I love the fireball effect. Or
yes,
when
it's
the
just
flames are
cool.
chasing people as they're running away.
Yes. It's just again, it's just like it's a movie I could see watching in theaters and just being like, especially with the audience and just that was a big audience cheer moment I could
Yeah.
see like how it was in theaters.
Oh yeah, I did not see this at the theater. This was I did not start going to the movies to see Stephen King movies in '84 just yet. So I did not see this one in the theater, but I did watch this a lot because my mother played this one a lot. She liked this movie a lot, so I saw this one. This one she loves Cat's Eye too. I was also a huge fan of Cat's Eye, which also had Drew Barrymore in it, by the way. Um, Stephen King. But I think that this film does such a great job with presenting the story in a visual way. I mean, I mean the scene at the airport. I want to bring the scene up in the air because they are just after escaping the clutches of the shop the first time. Andy and Charlie make their way to an airport, thinking that they can escape by getting on a plane. But at the airport, Charlie is just struck by this young woman who's pregnant and her military boyfriend who refuses to acknowledge that he might be the father of her child. And she is someone who's poor and doesn't know what to do without him. She doesn't know if she's going to survive anything. And she's just listening to their conversation until she's had enough of him. Um, and she sets him on fire. Like, but she doesn't mean to. It's uncontrollable at that time. But that whole situation plays into Charlie's ideal. Like, not only the fact that this is a military guy, and the military in this movie are the bad guys. They are the bad guys. So it's great that it happens to a military guy for the story
Yeah.
purposes.
I will say I did have a small problem with that sequence only because it honestly like it started sounding like the dialogue repeated. Like I remember I was watching,
Oh yeah,
I was like, did they just run out of things and they're just repeating the audio? Because I feel like I've heard these exact statements like two or three times now. That did get on my nerves a little bit. I was like, the section like was good of like, the effect of his shoes being on fire and him running to the bathroom to like put it out was a great little thing, especially the joke the
the cops.
military guy says after of just like, can you get your feet out? It's like, yeah, once my feet aren't on fire and stuff. But I was annoyed. I was like, I swear they were repeating the dialogue because I was like, this just keeps going on like repetition wise.
You know what? I would have said the same thing, and if I had watched it now, I honestly would have said that because I would be thinking of it as a screenwriter and thinking of it as a filmmaker, and it's repetitive, like you just said. But I could also see that as the at the time, and I hate to say this because there was lots of stories like this from what I remember. I don't know if it's true or not, but from what I remember, there was a lot of these type of similar military people who would get a young lady pregnant in some place and then they have to leave because they get, they get what do you call it, transferred off, they get stationed somewhere else. And of course, they just, this seems like a story that you've heard 1,000 times. The military guy is just saying that it's not his. You need to go get it checked out. You were with a billion other men. I don't know who you've been with. And this is all before we could have paternity tests. Like if that was something that was out at the time this movie was made, she would have just simply said, well then let's get a paternity test, and that would have been the end of the conversation. But we didn't have that back then. So then she's trying to convince him over and over again that it's his because he's the only guy she's been with, and she doesn't know what to do without him because she's poor. She doesn't have any money. And that whole idea of being poor and not having money played into what I saw with Andy and Charlie and Vicky. When Vicky is killed, their happy life is no longer there. Now they're on the run because of the military, because of a shadow military group. So I like the concept of that being in the story. But you are absolutely right. The dialogue is repeated, and if it's not repeated word by word for word, it sure the hell sounds like it's word for word. So, but after they get accosted at the old people's farm, I can't remember their names to save my life. Uh, Louise Fletcher and the other actor, they escape again. After they've out,
Urban Norma.
yeah. They after they give them a car so they can escape again, and this is when they finally get to where they were originally intending to go anyways, which is Andy's father's old house on the lake. Great location, by the way. We don't see it enough, unfortunately, in the film. I
Yep.
realized I kept thinking that that whole scene was a little longer than it was, that whole sequence, but it really isn't.
No, I will say at the same time, like that sequence, I did have a little problem of like, because that's when they get captured and stuff, and like, man, Andy was acting like a complete idiot in that whole sequence. Like, you guys are on the run, you're not really trying to act alert, okay, whatever. But then Charlie gets tranquilized first, and then Andy, like an idiot, is just looking around, being like, "Who shot my daughter? Who shot?" And it's like, dude, she's alive. Why are you not picking her up and running? You're looking like a complete idiot. Um, that I will say one of my little small nitpicks throughout the movie is Andy is not the smartest tool in the shed sometimes.
I don't think he's
Through
supposed to be, dude.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he just kind of bothered me sometimes. And David Keith was fine, but there were sometimes with some of his delivery that was like, oh, like I had some issues with some of his delivery at times.
It's interesting that you say that because with me, when I saw it as a kid and a billion times I've seen it, I've always saw Andy as like this country boy who just doesn't know any better. And so the scene with him and Vicky when they first are in getting the shots for the experiment, these two poor kids is how I saw them. These two poor kids who are I think Vicky's in college, but I don't know what he's doing. Like I don't know how he fits in there. But they never seemed like smart people to me. And when they became parents, they weren't really like the smartest people either. It's
Yeah.
they seem normal, which is not the way that you see. I think it's Zac Efron in the remake. Obviously,
Yeah.
he brings a different quality to the role in the remake. But with them, they seem like he became a father and he had a one-track mind. The only thing was like protecting his daughter and at the detriment of himself, which is why I tell you he knows he's slowly dying the more he uses his powers. He feels it. You see it in his before he yeah, like he knows he's not going to be around forever. He just wants to get his daughter to someplace safe as best that he can. But the unfortunate thing is he's not smart enough to realize that even though he has this old cabin that is still owned by his father, that he could be tracked there. So I did like, and I don't think I really noticed this either until recently when I rewatched it. The moment that they go into town, when they're delivering the letters to the different newspapers, the townspeople are on the take from the shop, and they're the ones that give Martin Sheen's character. What is Martin Sheen's character? Shit,
Dr. Hollister, or not
Hollister.
Dr. Hollister, Captain
Hollister.
Hollister.
The heads up that they are there. Um, I don't. When I was a kid, I don't think I ever registered that, but it was interesting for that to be in the story because now you have a grander scheme of everything regarding the shop. Now that also happens when we see um Rainbird kill the one doctor that doesn't want them to proceed with using Charlie as a government weapon. But the shop is ruthless. Like each time they come across Charlie, they get smarter each time. Then when they come to that lake, that house in the lake, Rainbird knows who to take out first. You take out the most powerful person, that's gonna be Charlie. You take out Charlie, and then you take out the father, and then everyone shows up. He realizes from hearing the stories about the last two times that they encountered them, that you have to take them without them knowing it. And then it's funny when they all come out of the woodworks in hazmat, not hazmat, they're not in hazmat suits. They're in fire protection suits, which I don't think I ever really took in the brain pan either. Like, if you feel that badly about what she could do, that little fire suit ain't gonna give you much. But it was real funny that they all came out of the woodwork wearing these fire suits, and Rainbow just out there. He just kind of strolls down there, checks out on Charlie, picks her up, and then leaves the father for them to take care of. Those little things.
Yeah. Which going talking about Hollister and stuff, I love Morgan Freeman in the movie. I loved his delivery. He or Martin Sheen, sorry. Martin Sheen. I love Martin Sheen. He was just so funny in every scene he was in
Yeah.
for me, especially when we got into some of the lab scenes and stuff. But it's funny because he originally was not supposed to be in. Originally was supposed to be Burt Lancaster and stuff, but he had to drop out due to the medical stuff. So Martin Sheen was cast, and I don't know how Burt Lancaster would have been, but Martin Sheen was great. He was one of the highlights for me with the movie.
You know what? It is as I slowly go back and rewatch some of these older films like The Dead Zone and this one, I seem to now realize that Martin Sheen did a lot of films before he became the president in the West Wing. I cannot imagine him now doing anything like this now. But we did a show on Spawn, and he's in Spawn. He's in the
Yep.
Dead Zone. He's in this film, and I keep forgetting all the types of films he did before he became a huge, prestigious actor. Like it would be so much fun to see him do something like Firestarter now that he's older, because it's so much fun to see him this. Even I mean, you're right. He has a fucking blast in this film. Every scene he's in, he's like got that energy, that charisma. In every scene he's in, he brings so much, and he doesn't do much in most of his scenes.
Yeah.
It's just how he delivers those lines and what he's saying that just rings so well in this movie.
Yes, very much. Like the scene like when Charlie first shows her powers and Hollister sees it and he's just freaking out of just like, "See, I told you." Like honestly, it made me excited for him because that could easily be a very just like mundane scene and stuff, but like he's the most excited out of everyone in the room, and
Yeah.
it was just it's like you quickly just it gave you all the subtext about that character, about maybe what he's been going through before the story and stuff. That was just like again, like he was great just
Oh,
throughout.
you mentioned that scene. I wanted to mention that scene too because what you see on the looks on every one of the other faces this sense of fear. Like they've been told by the other doctor, the other doctor, I can't remember the other doctor's name that Rainberg eventually kills, that this woman could crack the earth and destroy the universe. And so you have this sense of fear on all these other characters, but not his character. His character's like, God damn it, yes, I knew she could do it. Ah! And it's an infectious energy from his character, from him in this movie, that isn't there for any of the other characters. Not even Rainbird, who seems to have his own agenda that even after many times as I've watched this film, I'm not 100% sure what his ultimate agenda is. But we gotta get an ideal of his end goal, Hollister's end goal with Charlie, but he's just so fascinated that she even exists, that the experiment that shouldn't have worked in any capacity worked in a way that it was a happy accident. Um,
And especially with how powerful, because unlike the other character, unlike Andy and Vic, who have limitations with their
mm,
power, Charlie has no limitations
no,
and stuff. So that's like, I think another aspect that really gets them, interested in Charlie's character.
yeah, yeah. It makes for a very interesting concept. They explore this a little bit in the sequel, Rekindled, Firestarter 2. They explore it a little bit in the sequel. But in here, I really like how they kind of get to the ideals that a young girl with power beyond anyone's known potential is. Like each time we see her use her powers, we see something different and new. And the fact that she's learning how to not only control it, but also to dissipate it, because she has that one line where she says, "Well, if she drew it back, if she drew all that power back into her, she'd probably just burn up herself." It's those little things in this film that allow that give it that little oomph on a rewatch. Like you first watch it, it really is just like a regular chase movie with secret government agents after someone with supernatural powers. That's what it feels like the first time you watch it. But when you rewatch it and you kind of have that opportunity to kind of dissect it like we're doing here now, you kind of see all the little subtleties in there. And I'm hoping, because I've heard that this film is so much like the book, that that it all derived from Stephen King's original novel and wasn't simply something created by the writers.
Yeah. No, it's a lot of this movie is all very one for one from the book. Again, there's just small little sections that are like slightly tweaked, but generally is the same.
That's because Stephen King goes a little bit far sometimes in his books and his characters. So we got to pull him back sometime.
It is funny though when because Stephen King apparently like hated this movie. He thought it was one of the worst adaptations of his work at the time, and this, that, and the other, which is funny. Funny
Yeah.
with all that because basically the director got into some fights with him about it, and then eventually was like, "Well, why don't you make your own film?" And then obviously we saw how that happened, and then he said later. Uh, and stuff that like he ended up directing his own film because he was mad about mine and other people's adaptation of his films, and then he made the worst one.
You know what? Maximum Overdrive has its thing, and we've talked about that one. That has its thing. But yeah, I from like we talked about on that show, Stephen King was coked out from what he tells us when he was making it. So yeah, he and he was and from his own words, he was coked out while writing some of the stories that he wrote. So and I do believe that this film only looks as big as it does because of producer Dino De Laurentiis. I always get his name fucking. I wish I could say his name properly. Um, Di, Dino De Laurentiis. Is that correct? Shit. What?
Uh, yes,
The
I think so.
Italian producer who produced a lot of movies in the 80s. Like the dude like switched genres like we switch pants every day. Like the dude was so good at switching
Yes.
from King Kong to this to Red Sonja. The guy just did he switched genres like anyone else, and he made every film of his feel big. That's the thing I like about his films. Like he didn't go out of his way to make a small film based on his Stephen King work. He went out of his way to make a big film. You're right when you said earlier that they could have made these fire effects and they could have skipped the whole thing with the fireballs. Like there's an easier way to do that, but visually speaking, those fireballs are cool as shit when she starts letting them go at the end of the movie. It, you know?
Oh yeah, I mean, and even like the train sections and stuff, like again, like
Yeah.
just it's something new every time, which again would make sense of, from a movie aspect of like they would do different things, but they still do different things, and it's cool things. She starts out with wood chips, and then, eventually she's melting walls, and it's just like, and like concrete walls, not just like
Yeah.
a wood wall. And it's just stuff like that. Like I laughed when that scene happened, and then she's trying to cool off, and there's like the ice next to it.
Mhm.
And I thought originally like, oh, we're gonna see the ice like slowly melt and stuff. But no, the ice just explodes, and that just made me laugh because I was like, okay, I wasn't expecting that.
No, no, I wasn't either. Probably when I first saw this movie, it kind of after you've seen it as many times as I have, it's all the movie still impressed me. This was one of the Stephen King films I still watch. Like I said, I watched it a few years back, and then I watched it again right before the remake came out, and then I wanted to make sure that we tackled it this year since we didn't tackle it last year for our Stephen King themed month. So, eventually we'll get around to all these early or these 80s Stephen King adaptations because there's so many of them and they're hit and miss. Some of them take Stephen King's work seriously, while others just take seeds of it and explore completely different ideals. I think this one is one of the highlights for me in the 80s for Stephen King adaptations. Just like I love The Dead Zone. I think The Dead Zone's one of the amazing ones from that time period either, which is why I bring that one up.
Yep.
Um, and then we're gonna get to Rainbird because he's the interesting assassin played by George C. Scott. Now we've mentioned him several times already, but the thing about this movie, and this is maybe you could shed some light on it for me. As many times I've seen this film, I don't always get his motivation for what he is doing and why he's doing it.
Yeah.
This
He
rewatch had me thinking that he kind of sees her gift as a means to either speaking with the gods or she is with the gods or I never saw that until I rewatched it now. Some of the wording that he said, I don't know. What did what was your take on that?
I mean, so I know in the book, the it's kind of a it's very weird. His motivation in the book, and I kind of see it in the movie too, is that it's kind of a Moby Dick type of situation. Actually, a better equivalent would be like the Predator, of like he sees Charlie as a tool, like an opponent that's like, oh, this could be, someone I could have a good showdown with and stuff. And that's why he's interested and, helps the shop with, training her and stuff because he sees her as someone to have a worthy battle with and stuff is what his motivation is in the book, and I kind of see it in the movie too. It is still very vague, and of course, the remake doesn't make it any better.
No, I did not like what they did with his character in the remake. So
The remake, I think, does it even worse than that. I think the yeah, I think Rainbird in generally is, I think with all adaptations, is the weirdest kind of addition to the story. I think that they were trying to. I get the concept of what they were trying to do. I do think that again, I think it doesn't fully work. Um, in the end, I think they were just trying to find another like the because Hollister is a foil and stuff, and is a an obstacle for them. But I think they're trying to make Rainbird
yeah.
the biggest obstacle, and I think it's okay, but it doesn't fully work in my opinion.
So it's weird with me because as I'm watching the film, this recent rewatch, I also realized for the first time that he's undermining the shop at the same time that he's working with the shop. So every time he talks with Charlie and he's gaining her trust, he is actually also telling her to question and ask for more from the shop. Like he is telling her, show them a little bit, but demand to see your father in order to see more. Like you think that if he's working with the shop and trying to gain her trust, he would also be working with the shop on getting her in a different way. But it's like he's almost underhandedly undermining the shop because he thinks he's better than the people at the shop. He thinks he's better than Hollister. He thinks he's better than all of them. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm not 100% sure about his motivations. Like, I can't even understand why his character would even want to gain her trust in order to. And he asks that once they're done with her, he gets they're going to give her to him because he's been manipulating and keeping track of everything the shop does, and he will bring that to light if anything was to happen to him. I'm like, and I don't remember like assessing that as a kid when I watched this movie. These are just details I watched recently because I was trying to figure out Rainbird. Rainbird never sat well with me as even as a kid for some odd reason. And I think for me it's because his motivations are so like skewed. Like I don't understand 100%
Yeah,
his.
again, he's not a good written character, and based on the book too, it doesn't seem any better in the book and stuff. It just seems like they need a character to, they need a character to help like do the in between Charlie and Andy reuniting and stuff. And I think it just doesn't really work because yeah, like okay, if his motivation in the end is, oh, I want to train up Charlie to be like a worthy warrior for me to fight in the end and stuff, it's like okay, it would have then add more context to that. Or like you said, like, I think this is a character. What it is that I think this is a character typically in a story that would have a redemption arc. This is a character that typically would be by the end of the story goes, you know what? I've kind of bonded with you. I originally was trying to, kidnap you and I'm working with the government. But you know what? After being around you and stuff, I'm kind of seeing the error of my ways and, I'm going to help you escape. And no, it's like that was like maybe the intent at one point, and then it's like, nah, I'm just the bad guy at the end. It's like, uh, this is a weird way route I'm gonna go with this, but this is the thing that popped in my head. It's like the Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, where it's like you have Optimus and Megatron teaming up because they're enemies to fight the big bad, and then at the end it's like, oh, okay, we're gonna go in their separate ways, whatever, and then they're like, nope, we're gonna fight right now and stuff. And you're like, oh. Okay, sure. And that's kind of how I felt with this. It's like it felt like Rainbird, maybe that's why they were going to, it felt like maybe he was going to have a redemption arc and he's like, "Nah, I'm still going to kill you." I actually was waiting for this moment, I guess. I guess this worked out.
I don't think there was ever going to be a redemption arc for Rainbird, mostly because we see him sneak into the one doctor's house and kill him with just one hand to the face. I don't think that. Yeah, you
I
might. I
it,
don't think
it
that's a.
it feels like that though. Like if you read it on paper, it feels like this would be the character that would do that because again, like you said, he starts to undermine the shop, so it's like okay, usually when a character does that, they have their own motivations and stuff, which again, a lot of times if it's they're seeing the error of their ways, that makes more sense. But yeah, no, and this is just like, yeah, I'm undermining the shop because I want to fight you and I want to help you escape so I can fight you. And it's like, okay, sure, I guess.
And I'm not gonna say that you're wrong because you might be absolutely right because that's sort of how the remake does it with the Rainbird
Yeah.
character. Because they end the remake with Rainbird taking Charlie, with him. Um,
Yeah.
and now that you put that whole redemptive story arc in my brain, I might have to rewatch the remake just to see if that was its intention in that movie. In this movie, it's a little hard for me to see that because of the scene where he literally sneaks into the one doctor who house and just kills him with one to the face or to the neck or whatever he hits him. It's so freaking fast. I wasn't sure where he
Which
hit.
again, like in that, you could do that in the original and it makes sense you get to that. But with the remake where he's responsible for killing Charlie's mom, it feels a little less like, okay, it's really weird, right? That it's like it feels like the movies is Rainbird should have been switched. Like the 1984's Rainbird should have one who should have had the redemption arc at the end, and then the 2000 and then the new one, the remake, should have had Rainbird be like, "No, I'm still a bad guy at the end, and I need to be defeated." It was weird. It's like they flip-flopped the concepts because it's like the Rainbird in the remake has a lot more where it's like, "No, I think you should die." Like versus like the 1984 that other than killing the one doctor and stuff that he doesn't really do anything like super heinous.
No, we just hear about what he's done in his past because that's
Yeah.
where he came back from. He came back from an operation in which we know he killed somebody. We just don't know who. But yeah, no, I get that. I get that. So, I mean, that's the thing that still bugs me. And I'm sure it's gonna bug me forever, until I read the fucking book. I might have to just sit down and read the book. And I've read I've gone back and listened to the audiobooks for a lot of the earlier King books. I don't know if I can sit down and actually physically read the early King books. Like I actually physically read his latter books. The early ones are, in my opinion, kind of rough. So I'm sure I could enjoy them if I listen to them on a CD audiobook. So I might have to do that one. I've never done that. Not for that one. And for everyone listening, I think the early ones of his that I have not read would be Christine, Firestarter, and Cujo. I think those are the three last early books of his I have not bothered to read. I just go ahead and audiobook them all. All right. So I do want to bring this back up because we talked about it a couple times already. It is the test that the shop does on Charlie. I like the fact that what they do is it's throughout the test that they do with her. She says they're too simple.
Yes. Oh yeah, no, her delivery when she did the wood chip one is just like, oh, that's easy. Yeah, I like I think generally Drew Barrymore did a good job.
Mhm.
I do think there's a couple moments that she was okay. It actually was funny because I noticed apparently there were some moments she was just having problems with. And I noticed one like when she's tranquilized and you know and and Andy is like, holding her and it's like freaking out. It's like, who did this? I it's hard to see. It might be like it's a blink and miss it, but I actually could tell the actress was laughing. Like she actually was starting to laugh, and I think so David Keith was like trying to cover her face more when that was happening. But if you watch the scene again, if you look at the actress, she's actually starting to like start to laugh, like because he's like shaking her around and stuff. Uh, that was kind of funny. But another fun little tidbit is the ending. When Andy is dying and stuff, and he's not able, and she's crying over it. Apparently, Drew Barrymore, was just not able to cry, so she literally asked David Keith to spank her before they started filming, so that way she would be crying before like they started filming, and he said he did it, but like. That's a fun little tidbit of just like she her being like, "Can you spank me? Because I can't cry."
Well, she is really young, and she's a
Yes.
child actor, so she was in a lot of shit as a child actor. Which I thank God for because she was in so many great movies that I still watch today. Um,
Hmm.
I think she's another underrated actor, because she's had such a long career, and I think she's still amazing. All you have to do is watch her in Santa Clarita Diet and realize that she still has that A game coming on. She may have started off with some horror stuff, rotated to some comedy shit, then did some Charlie's Angel shit, but she always came back to horror. So I'll stick with you, Barrymore. I think she's great. Uh, and the fact that I was a kid when I was watching these films that she was in too. So I wasn't. I probably was just a little bit older than her. I think this was '84. So I'm like 8 or 9 years old when I saw this movie. Shit, my parents have just warped my brain when I was young. Because I can guarantee you, I saw this the year it came out. I can guarantee you, I saw this movie. My mother watched this movie so often. I can guarantee you, I saw this the year it came out. Um, and that's just I grew up watching a lot of movies with her, so I think I think she may have been a little rough in this movie compared to what I thought of her in Cat's Eye. But she has this undeniable quality that I mean, she's a star in this movie, pretty much, and she's a star
Yeah.
of Cat's Eye, even though she's only in the one segment, pretty much. So the thing is, she has this charisma and this presence that's undeniable. And this film, she does a lot of shit in this movie, dude. She does a lot. She carries
Yeah.
it. Um,
So another quick like little like fun behind the scenes fact. So obviously the movie was ended up directed by Mark Lester. He was not the first pick. It was going to be John Carpenter, and John Carpenter was going to direct. and Lasseter was going to write the screenplay, but after the thing bombed,
Mhm.
I put quotations on there, Universal replaced him.
Yeah, I do remember hearing that story there. But he eventually did Christine, so it's all good.
Yeah, but a John Carpenter Firestarter, I mean, again, I think he also would have kept a lot of the practical effects like we saw in here, but it's very interesting to, think of what a John Carpenter Firestarter would have looked like.
Yeah, yeah. No, I won't deny that. I do think that his sensibilities, because he's a musician, played much better for Christine, and the music he used for that, and the way the score is. I just think Christine like is just fucking brilliant for him. Um, this one, yeah, I think this would have been an odd one coming off of the thing, actually. Uh,
Yeah. Apparently, the original like scripts that the John Carpenter's scripts that they were playing around with, were going to be not close to the book. It's actually funny.
uh,
It's after they were going. It was going to be a little. It was going to be not as faithful to adaptation, which is funny because then usually it's the opposite sometimes. And when Lester was brought on and stuff, and he brought on Stanley Mann, they wrote closer to the novel.
and yet Stephen King was not still not satisfied.
Yeah, and it's funny because apparently the only thing that Stephen King said he liked was the toast burning scene because he thought he was like, oh, he's like, why didn't I think of that?
It's funny to listen to the stories about Stephen King on these early films based on his works and how he is now.
Yeah,
Like he doesn't really care now. His books and stories will live on through his written word, and the films are just films to him. I think you're right when you mentioned earlier after he done Maximum Overdrive. I think he said he's never directing again. I think he mellowed out. And he just had fun
yeah,
with it afterwards. He's did his cameos in all the movies, and he had fun. He's written tons of fucking screenplays now that have been produced and some that haven't been produced, both for television and the theatrical release. So I I think the experience what you're telling me about this movie, and I think it's just mellowed him out a lot, and so he's cool with this shit now. Like I don't think he had 2 words for the remake at all. I don't recall him saying shit about the remake.
he probably just like, oh yeah, yeah. I think like you said, he's just kind of
I
like
gotta check.
I gotta check. I don't care anymore. I
Well,
don't
it
care
doesn't.
about the stuff, how all this stuff goes.
I guarantee you, if he writes a short story that's put in some other random anthology, that's more money than what the studios make giving him for just using his ideal for a film now. I think that, and he doesn't need the money anyways. He's got so much of it because he's a nonstop writing machine. All right. He just looks at the little checks in the films and it's like, okay, I write novels. Films are films, novels are novels.
Yeah. Versus someone like Alan Moore who constantly he
Well,
still complains to this day about his
everything,
stuff.
everything. I don't think he's ever said a positive word about any adaptation of anything he's ever done. Which makes him really crazy. But he's a great writer too. He's a fucking brilliant writer. So uh I'm trying to see what else. Oh, let's talk about well, how much of the ending have we already discussed? Because I just want to say that after well, let's get to the point that at some point in the film, um Andy has been manipulating the shop people because he's captured, and he's not taking the drugs that would inhibit his abilities, and so he takes control over the Hollister character. That's very important because this is where we get to see Martin Sheen play 2 different characters because the Andy controlled Hollister is very different than the normal Hollister. And so I actually like that transition. That could be why he's so big earlier in the film, and where when he's taken over by Andy, he's so subdued.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I agree. But yeah, no, I mean yeah, when we get into the finale and stuff, I thought that was done very well. Although again, just another like kind of silly moment of
Oh yeah.
like where Andy, Hollister's character ends up getting killed by Rainbird, and Andy controls over Rainbird, and out of all the options he could do to subdue him, he just tells him just jump off because he's on a up on a balcony. He tells him to
In the
jump
barn.
off it, uh, and then like that would have done anything. Which all it does is breaks Rainbird's leg and stuff, but it didn't stop him anything. When he had an active gun in his hand and could have just told him to shoot himself or whatever, he just tells him to jump off the balcony. So that in retro, so that way Rainbird can have a chance to kill Andy. That was another like, okay, that was kind of dumb, Andy. You had a billion different things you could have told him to do, and you gave him the easiest option.
I still think that's part of his character. I don't think Andy wants to kill anybody. But he doesn't, I don't think he ever thinks about the outside forces that can kill him. I think he can only visualize the fact that he's slowly dying from his own use of his own powers. I don't think he can comprehend that the shop really at any point can kill him. And he doesn't know who Rainbird is until right before that all happens. Remember, he doesn't know that Rainbird is masquerading as a cleaning person to his daughter until Hollister tells him that on the drive to meet her. And so it's not until like he doesn't know that he's Rainbird's an assassin. Well, yeah, he does because
Yeah, he
Hollister.
does.
Yeah,
He saw Rainbird shoot Hollister.
well, no,
He
no.
knows
Hollister does.
because
Yeah, Hollister does tell him that Rainbird's the one who shot them at his father's place and all that type of stuff. So he is aware of that. He's aware of that how dangerous Rainbird can be. So I'm going to agree with you. It's kind of weird that all he does is tell Rainbird to jump off.
and he didn't even tell him like jump head first. He says just jump off, and
Yeah,
it's just like at least tell him to throw away his gun or something. He actually has the gun in his
yeah,
hand.
because he's been getting shot at. So yeah.
It's
Uh,
just like throw the gun away, jump off the thing. You have so many options. Tell him to walk until his feet start bleeding.
No, no, you're
Uh,
right. You're right about that one. You got that one. That one I'm gonna give you on that one. That one's yeah. You're absolutely right on that one. Yeah, there were so many different options that would not have led to Andy being shot.
yeah,
That would
it
have been more
it
effective.
it yeah, it did not make any sense.
Uh,
Although in the remake, how Andy get decides to get himself killed is also just equally as stupid. But
yes, it is equally as stupid. Uh, but at some point, the story didn't need Andy to die. It's unfortunate because we already know he was going to die at some point, anyways. But to actually get killed right then and there, we need that because without that, we don't get the big fireball.
yeah, we don't get the showstopper, which
Showstopper,
is a big
showstopper.
showstopper.
It is a huge showstopper. I do like the fact that the first thing that Charlie does is to free all the horses. She
Yeah.
loves horses and she frees all the horses because earlier Rainbird uses the horses as leverage against Charlie not to burn down the barn with them all in it. And so I like the fact that the first thing that happens well, first thing, some of the people in the fire suits into try to enter the barn, and then they get thrown through the barn by a fire flash, and then all the horses come out. So I like that. What's really funny though, and this is also stupid, is now these people at the shop know how dangerous she is. They have videos of what she can do. And yet, as Charlie is walking out of that horse barn and throwing fireballs at people and making fire chase people and blowing up helicopters out of the sky, you still have shot people who are stopping to try and shoot her as if that's going to be effective at all. Like there are certain people, like the one African American doctor who's running. I can't remember his name. Oh shit, I can't remember his name. But he's running until he gets to a cart, and then he's driving away. And when you see that thing get lit up, by a fireball is like, ah, shit, this is just great. Because, a smaller film would have said, we have one or two fireballs. That's all we need, right? Nah, there's a whole damn dozen or more fireballs, not only to individual people and individual cars, but when she sets her sights on the main shop headquarters away from the barn, they just plummet. And she don't care about killing anybody. You see people falling out the top floor windows as the place is burning up. Fireballs hitting everyone. Dude, it's a great show stopping ending. This movie has a great
Oh
show.
yeah. It's funny because after this, Mark Lester did Commando, and like you could see watching this why he did Commando after that. I was like, oh yeah, he's already used to doing like the big bombastic like explosions and big like
Yeah,
scenic effects and stuff. So I was like, oh yeah, that makes complete sense that he did. I remember because I didn't connect the two originally. I didn't realize he did Commando 2 until I did research. I was like, oh, that makes watching this movie. I was like, oh, that makes sense. I see it. I see why.
yeah. Like I told you before that we start recording this, I had to look it up too. I was like, I know that name. Why do I know that name? And he did that, which I've seen way too many times. Commando and Showtime in Little Tokyo and several other films that I actually really enjoy before kind of going into obscurity with some straight to DVD flicks I've never heard of. It's a little shame that that's what happened to it, eventually happened to his career after doing these type of films, but it
Yeah.
happens. It unfortunately happens. The '80s were a heyday of lots of great movies, and a lot of small movies making a profit, which led these directors of these small movies to more projects until their bigger projects stopped making money, and then they got pigeonholed into no budget movies, straight to DVD stuff during the '90s, which is sad, but it was the business end. When the '90s came and VHS boom, all the companies needed content. It was straight to DVD, and all these great people that did these theatrical films had to get work somewhere. And
Yeah.
that's what I saw happen to Mark Lester. So, but still, this is probably Commando, or like this shows what he could do on a really big budget with some really good stars and stories behind them. Because I still think this film holds up pretty damn well. I wasn't sure when I rewatched the movie. I was like, shit, it's been since the remake that I have seen this movie, and I was still in a good mood when I saw it back then. Will this film hold up?
Oh
I
yeah,
think
I think it does generally hold up.
I do think it still holds up. So, um, but yeah, I mean that's a great finale. And I I had forgotten that the little coda at the end has the Ir- Irv, is his name Irv,
Yeah.
right? Irv is taking Charlie to the New York Times to tell them her story, and and that's a great coda for the movie because essentially it's all about this government shadow conspiracy group, and all they want to do is bring it out in the open, and everything that's happened to them, bring it out to the open. I don't know what was going on in politics at the time the story was being made, but that seems like it was like of the time. Like we were having lots of like like shadow conspiracies going on with the government and stuff, and it seemed just topical at the time. Now it really seems topical.
Yes. Well, what's funny too is in the book, so in the movie, yeah, it was New York Times. In the book, weirdest choice. This is a Stephen King random choice of all time. Charlie goes to the Rolling Stones magazine to publish her thing because, and I quote, Rolling Stone magazine was seen as the most unbiased, honest media source with no ties to the government. So
I,
if they really want to be faithful, that's why Stephen King was mad about this movie because she didn't go to the Rolling Stones at
yeah, the
the end.
Rolling Stone. Oh my God, that's hilarious. I had no clue. That's hilarious. Jesus. Oh my God. I need to look into some of these stories about background about some of these movies from time to time because you guys, all you special guests that we bring onto the show have you do an impeccable job researching these fun facts about the makings of these movies. I'm so glad you guys do that so that our listeners get those little tidbits because that's not my forte. So I don't have the willpower to go out there and do that type of research, but I'm so glad you guys all do. So, um, is there anything else that we would like to talk about regarding Firestarter that we have not tackled already?
The last thing I'll add is it's really disappointing that the remake was so bad as it is because I do think this story can be remade, and some of the problems we had is kind of like you said before of like the remake. There was a couple things it fixed, and then it did a lot of things wrong. I think they really could have done a better. I think the Firestarter story could be remade and done better. It's just a problem is I don't think we're going to get that for a long time because that remake bombed bad. So I do not think we'll get another one anytime soon, which is disappointing. Um, because I think it is a good story.
I think that the remake was made at a time, as like I said earlier, that there's just too many superhero movies, and
Yeah.
so that's the kind of the vibe you get from the remake. I liked the vibe better with the sequel to this, rekindled Firestarter 2, which I had to remember that playing John Rainbird in that was Malcolm McDowell, which isn't much better than George C. Scott. So uh,
Nope.
so I enjoyed that remake because it took Charlie into more of a teenager, older than teenager, kind of late teenager slash early 20s age, and her coping with her abilities and her sexual awakening. I kind of liked that ideal. I wish that they could find a way to do this film by using modern day contemporary ideals. I think you can still get away with a shadow government conspiracy thing. But if you need to do it so that you're respecting the ideal of a bad experiment gone worse and the
Yes.
ideal of what were the extreme possibilities of what Charlie could do. Like the other doctor that Rainbird killed. I can't remember his name for saving my life, but his ideal that this could be something new and unheard of, and that she becomes so powerful that she could crack the earth. That ideal is a very cool ideal, and not do like a superhero origin story, which is how I saw the remake. Um, I think you could still do the ideal if you could find a way in that would make people believe in the government conspiracy world. Now you could now. If they did it now, you just have the whole fake news shit, and you could bring in some of those elements and bring in the whole fake news ideals and all that type of shit, and having a government figure like, and don't get me wrong, listeners, when I say this, someone who's polarizing like Trump as our government Hollister character. And you could probably do something like that and make it more topical, and make it more interesting, and bring in more motivation for why Rainbird is the way he is. Like that still doesn't sit well with me in this film. Is like his motivation seems so skewed and like shadowy in and of itself. I think in order for it to work, you have to create a story in which Rainbird's story is also integral to Charlie's story. Or
Yeah.
yeah, it can't be like a side story. It has to be integrated into her journey as a someone with these supernatural powers. Um,
Yes.
I think you can make it work. It might take someone with it might take a Mike Flanagan, some creativeness, since he seems to be can't stop remaking Stephen King shit right now, since he just got signed on to remake The Mist, which does not need a remake. Like, um, Mike, Mr. Flanagan, if you're out there, Just leave the mist alone. Just leave it alone. Have Blumhouse hire you to remake fucking Firestarter the right way, or something. Make a fucking modern day Cujo and really kick some shit in the ass, or Christine. Um, but I mean, Firestarter could be just like Carrie. Carrie. Mike Flanagan's redoing that, and Carrie's had Brian De Palma behind it. Then they had The Rage Carrie 2, which is Kate Shea. God, I may have got that wrong, but hopefully I don't. And then, of course, the two remakes of it, the one starring Angela Bettis, which is decent, and then the one starring Chloe Grace Moritz. So Firestarter could be the exact same way. As long as it doesn't become Children of the Corn Part 20, I think we'll be fine. uh, with that, do we have any other things to talk about in regards to Firestarter?
Nope.
All right. So, Philip, I want to thank you for joining me on this conversation about Firestarter from 1984, directed by Mark L. Lester. For everyone listening, what we love to do is we like to take the film and we like to give it a rating between 1 and 5. 1 being poor, 5 being amazing. But what we like to do is we like to take an object, quote, or saying to attribute to our ratings. What is your rating, Philip, and what are you going to attribute to your rating, whether it's a quote, object, or a saying?
I'll give Firestarters 3.5 exploding ice blocks out of 5.
All right. So I'm being more generous on this film mostly because I grew up on this movie. And even though the Rainbird stuff has always fucking boggled my mind, even when I was a kid, it's grown on me. It's grown on me. I can't say much about it. And I do like to watch this one and the sequel together now, even though they've got completely different casts. I kind of like watching the Firestarter story progress. So I'm gonna give it 4 exploding fireballs towards some dum-dum with a gun against Charlie. So I just can't. Yeah, every time I see that dum-dum that pulls out a gun, thinks that he could stop Charlie. When obviously the bullets are exploding as they get close enough to her. She's never going to get hit by a bullet because they explode because of the heat before they get to her. So that's what I'm going to rate this. I do hope everyone has had a fun time listening to us talk about Firestarter, yet another Stephen King adaptation from the 80s. Please make sure to check out all the other great Stephen King related films that we are doing this month during our Stephen King themed month. We're going to have a lot of fun. This seems to be a yearly thing that we're going to do. So every year we're going to just do more Stephen King films because we're never going to run out. So please make sure to check out all the great films that we talked about last year for our Stephen King themed film. Make sure to like, follow, share, subscribe, do that thing you do with your favorite podcast and your favorite podcast app, Spotify or YouTube. And please make sure to check out our other podcast, Conversations in Hammer Studio Horrors, which delves into the great films of the 60s and 70s and 80s that were produced by the Hammer Studio system. For all of us here at Something Wicked Entertainment, we want to wish you a great day. And please, if you see Charlie McGee or Drew Barrymore, just stay away because you never know what type of fire is going to come your way. Have a great day. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, written, produced, and directed by Kevin L. Powers, executive producer Kelly A. Inoka. All contents and material from this episode of Conversations in Horror is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures.